So my pickups were done early today. I don't think I'm going to get any cars out prepped before the end of the month. So I think it's a good time to crack back on with the Micro, especially as I bought another one recently. Where we left it last time is we welded a piece of metal in. Some of you quite rightly said I shouldn't have welded it to the brace across the middle because it wasn't originally welded there, and it just pulls the metal down, and probably what caused my dip here where I put a bit of the fiberglass filler in. So what we're going to do today is sand it down, try and get our shape right. And once we've got our shape right on it, we're going to put a temporary coating of top coat on it to seal it so that we can take the car out and wash it off before we start doing any painting, because it is covered in filth and we'll just be ruining our paint finish. But there's no point doing that until obviously all the shaping's done and we've got all the dust from cleaning it up done. I think what I'll do is I can still feel a slight low spot there, very slight, but I think we can use the other filler over the top as well now. So we'll just give this all a scuff up and then use normal filler over the top to try and smooth it out. Now, this is going well overboard for a car that's probably worth 1,500 quid, but it's more about the technique, and this is a good opportunity to perfect technique and try different things out, that kind of thing, and might help some of you guys in prepping it. So let's get cracking. Plus, I have to admit, I want to get my MGB back out again, and this is blocking it in. So sand it down, you can start to see where you've got low spots, because I try and keep the sander flat on the surface. So this tells you where your low spots are and where some of your higher spots are. Now we'll give that a skim over with normal filler, and then we'll give that filler a dusting with black paint so that we can then sand it back and see where our low spots remain. So skimming that with the filler, waiting for that to now go off. Now obviously this would have been a much smaller area had I not created a dip behind by welding it down to the brace, but is what it is. At least it's not on top of the car and people don't look up that high too often. We're not expecting this to be a perfect repair, but again, we're just sort of demonstrating what can be done. So when this is dried off, we'll spray it with black paint, which will give us a bit of a guide coat as to where we've got low and high spots. This will need another skim of the filler. This is actually a very thin coat. You can see the colour of the roof below it in some points. I personally like to use the metal, what do you call these? I forget what they're called now. Spreaders. I like to use the metal spreaders personally when I do it. Obviously I'm using a wide one here for the roof because we're doing quite a large area. Top tip is have a bit of white spirits or a bit of paint cleaner around. As soon as you've done it, give it a clean off, because once it's hardened on this metal, you won't get it off, and then when you do, you'll probably end up damaging the edge of it, and then that'll create grooves and stuff in your filler when you reapply it. You can also use the plastic ones as well. They're easier to clean off afterwards, but for this repair, using a metal one, like I say, so use the thinners to sort of clean or paint cleaners to clean the blade off afterwards, the spreader. So yeah, this is what you call your guide coat. So you get some black or a darker paint anyway, and just dust it over the top of it. I like to pretty much completely cover it, and just let that dry off. And then when we sand, that'll stay in the low spots of the paint, where the paint is got low spots in it across that roof. It should be indicated by that paint staying there, because the sander won't touch it, and then we'll know we need to put a bit more filler there. Right, while we're waiting for that to go off, we may as well start tackling this here as well. So we'll give it a clean off with the G101 first, then we'll get sand in, and then we'll get some plastic filler in to repair these bits here, because we want to do this corner of the bumper as well, don't we? There we go. In some areas I've sanded out completely. In other areas we still need a little bit of filler in there. We'll get the plastic filler or the fiberglass filler in there rather than using normal filler. It needs to be a flexible filler, otherwise it'll crack straight out. So plastic filler primer in. We'll wait for that to go off, and then we can we won't need to key coat that one. It's not going to need to be perfection on that one, so there's no real low or high spots to be dealing with, so we just sand it back and it should be ready to go. So after sanding back the guide coat, we can see that actually we don't have a lot of high and low spots. There's a little spot just there, a little bit just there. What we have got is quite a high spot here where we can see we've got bare metal. That means that should be level with the rest of it, but the bare metal indicates that's sticking up higher. So that needs to be knocked back a bit and filled. Again, it's never going to be perfect. I'm sure it could be perfect if the right person was doing it, but we've got a little bit of a low spot there around the aerial holes, so we need to put a bit more there. So I think the skim across here and across here after I've knocked this back down a little bit. You can also see it's going to need a bit of filler there because we're hitting through the paint there and here, but not here. So it needs a skim there as well. So while the next skim's going off on the top there, we'll hit this here on the rear corner and get that sanded down. There we go, that looks like it's alright for going over some filler primer now. So a little feel of it. That sticks out a little bit where it had that bump there, but again, we're looking for nice looking paint. We're not worried if there's a slight reflection of a lump there. Might hit it a little bit harder, he says. Yeah, we'll give that a little bit more of a go, but then yeah, I won't want to go crazy with this bit. So battery ran out for the second sanding of that, and so I just cracked on because I didn't have a lot of time. So we've now got a coat of filler primer on there, and we'll wait for that to dry off, give it a second coat. We've got some dust and crud in there. It's going to need sanding again, but what I'm going to do is put a second coat on them before I go, because it's getting a bit, the light's leaving me, is getting another coat of it down, filler primer. Then I'll cover it in just a random can of white top coat, because I don't want this filler primer and the filler to absorb any moisture while it's sitting here waiting for me to get to the next stage. And then what I can do with that on top is move the car outside and get all this off, give it a proper clean. The whole thing's going to get machine polish after, so I'm not worried about getting a bit of overspray here and there, and I can obviously clean overspray off the glass, but we'll get it inside and get it properly clean so this dust and dirt doesn't get into the final top coats of the car. The rear corner's got its plastic primer at the moment, then it'll get a coat of filler primer. The masking at the moment obviously is just to stop the filler primer getting anywhere too much at the moment. It'll be remasked again after I've pulled all this off, cleaned the car down, and we'll have to take the line further back for the colour and lacquer. This is just the primer side. The primer will get sand again, so it'll need remasking at that point. But as I said, the light is leaving me now, so I think I will probably leave it there. Plus it's Saturday and I should get home at a decent time for the family. So before I move the micro outside, I'm going to sort this oil pan situation out. If you remember, it started leaking oil everywhere, and I've wire brushed the sump down and found a hole at the front at the top there, but the whole thing is crusty. So luckily I don't have to look to take the exhaust off to get to it. I can get to the sump all the way around there. So I'm just draining all the oil off. I've got another one on the way. I'll just get some WD-40 around those bolts while I'm waiting for the oil to leak out and give myself a bit more of a fighting chance. The biggest issue you find is trying to break the seal between the mating surfaces where they put the gasket. That's normally the thing that challenges you the most. You have to slide a blade in normally and chisel around it without trying to damage the surface. Bummer one's got a new hole. Here it comes. Make sure you keep close to the side so you don't want to accidentally damage a strainer or something like that. So just be a bit gentle when you do this. Find a corner, work it in, then whip it off. And there we have it. Strainer looks nice and clear. We'll give all that a clean up. We've got to scrape all the way around that. Well, not scrape it, but clean it with a razor blade all the way around. Make sure the surface is ultra clean. And then clean off the grease and that. Get some sealant on and pop the new sump on, which has just arrived. I've got my new sump here. I've been sent a sump bolt as well, even though there's actually one with the sump kit. I'll return that. I also bought sealant with that. It actually comes with the sealant as well, so I could have saved the cost on that. Looks exactly the same. I'll just double check now. With this one, we put the sealant on and allow it to get touch dry before we bolt the sump up. That's so you don't basically just splurge it all out the sides when you tighten it up. So we'll do that, get the sealant on it, let it become touch dry. Scrape the surface down with the razor blade and clean it down so that's free of oil as well. And then it's just a case of bolting this one back in again. Yeah, I didn't check the box. There was actually a nozzle for that. While I was trying to squeeze it out the fat end, there was actually a nozzle trimmed down for it. Just waiting for it to cure off a little bit and then we'll stick it on. So there's a new sump on. We've just nipped it up finger tight at the moment. It's going to go and get torque settings for it, but allow it to cure a few more minutes as well. We'll leave it half an hour after that. We'll top it back up with oil. It'll just be some random oil at the moment, just to move the car out. And then we'll do a full oil and filter change once we know this isn't leaking and everything's good. So I've got the micro out, had it running, we've got no leaks. Might need a new battery. This is that I've got to charge the battery fully up again, but we've got no leaks on the sump at all. So that's all good. Did my job right there. And by getting that out, we managed to free the MGB, which has been sitting for months. That had a flat battery. But luckily, I tried the little JS 1200 from Top Don, the small portable jump pack. Did the job. She fired right up then, you know, so you can excuse having a bit of a flat battery after sitting for months, but no, fired right up, drove straight out. Brilliant. I know a lot of you tried to get these last time and they got out of stock, didn't they? Top Don did. Well, they have messaged me, so they've restocked again on these little jump packs. They're about half the size of the giant ones I carry about, and they're fantastic for those of you that aren't having to constantly jump cars like me, just want something small and portable and really affordable as well. So I'll put a link in the description down below for those again, but they do sell out quick, so I'd grab them while they're there. So we'll rinse all the crud off of the Micra, so that we can then sand all that paintwork back down again. I can already see, I did actually put the filler primer on quite thick. I think it sunk a little bit, so we'll see when it's sanded down how that is. We're going to clean off the MG while we're there, because that's been picked up tonight after having gone down. It had a brake light was staying on. Handbrake light was staying on. Well, it turns out there's actually a bit of a leak from the from a brake pipe or something, I think, that they've sorted for me this morning. The Kia Rio is still down there, because it seems that I was right in spotting that small amount of coolant dropped off. They had a look and the radiator looks like it's about to go completely, so they're swapping the radiator out on that, which is a bit of a mistake, because I let my neighbour have it cheap without knowing exactly how much it was going to cost me, because I said he could just buy it with the MOT the guy put on it, which was 12 months, and just have it serviced. And that's it. Well, it turns out I need to put a radiator in it as well now, so yeah, eating a little bit of profit there. The other MG can watch. I don't think it's very approving of the new MG. It's such a pretty car in comparison, isn't it? No disrespect, such a pretty car in comparison. Right, that's cleaned off. We're not giving it a proper deep clean at the moment. We just want to get all the loose stuff off it. And this is the reason I painted it in the white paint first. You see the water's beading up on it. Whereas if that had been the primer, it would have soaked into it. Same with the filler. So we've got all the loose dirt and crud off of it now. So we move it back inside. And the MG's cleaned as well. And there's a little waterless wax on it now. So my fiddling bout's been interrupted by the chap that bought the Honda Accord. So Honda Civic the other day. So he's messaged me and said he's getting knocking in the steering. Brought it over, had a little go with it. We came over on Saturday, had a little go with it. And yeah, if you're at standstill and you rock the steering wheel, you get a little bit of knock from the steering column if you go far enough left and right. So probably a warm bushing in the steering column, I would have thought. I said, you're welcome to get it checked out if you want. He said, I don't want to bring it over here, I'm in Barnstable. So I said, well, you can go to the car care guys, you know that I used to work, those of you watching me for a long time used to know I worked closely with them before when I was down at Alfa Ragazzi, and Malk the legend there took it in because he also said that it was steering off to the left, which I hadn't noticed, so we got the tracking done for him, and Malcolm checked it all and he said he can't find anything wrong with any of the steering column, any looseness anywhere, anything like that. He tried it all out while he had it on the ramp doing the tracking, so he said to the guy, he said, look, to be honest, I can't find anything other than, you know, it's 92,000 mile 10-year-old car, it might have a bit of play in the steering rack. Well, the chap wasn't really happy with that, so he took it round to see his mate who used to look after his BMW, and he said he thinks that there's some play in the steering rack, but he doesn't think it's outside of the car, he thinks it's inside the car in the column, but he can't tell which part it is till he starts taking it apart. So the chap gave me a ring and I said, well, okay, let me have a little look into it. I looked online and I can get a used rack for quite cheaply, to be honest. I don't know how much hassle it might be changing the locks over and stuff, because obviously the lock is in the steering column, so we'll have to look at that. Maybe we can take apart the actual lower part of it and put it on. But I said, look, I'd want my Moors guys to do it, because at the end of the day, if I let another garage just give them free rein to get cracking with it, they could be wrong and we could end up playing part starts and I end up carrying the bill. I was half tempted to say, look, bring the car back, I'll refund you, and then sell it to somebody else and say it's a 92,000 mile car. If you sit still and you rock the steering column back and forth, you're going to hear a bit of a knock where the bushings are worn from 92,000 miles of driving. But the thing with this chap is he's nice enough. He works in a big local factory where I've already got a really good reputation for looking after people. The part wasn't very expensive, so you got to weigh up. You got to weigh it up, really. I'm sure a lot of you will have your ideas down below. Maybe you think that I'm out of order, and regardless of it being 10 years old and 92,000 miles, there shouldn't be any knock in the steering column at all, under any circumstances. But as I always say, there has to be a limit to how far you restore these cars. It's got to be fit for purpose, and obviously he's been driving it and loves driving it, and you know he wants to keep hold of the car because he really likes it and it drives bang on. So what can you do? So I'm going to have to leave that there. We're going to get this sanded and coloured in a video soon, but we have got a block sand it. What we'll do next is we will get the block sander on it, because obviously the disc, so I'll show you on. The disc only does a small area at a time, so it's still possible if you have high spots. If we use this block sander, we'll be able to go the whole thing and make sure we've got it as level as we can. I don't expect it to be you know, absolutely perfectly level, but for reasons already discussed about welding it and possibly putting a little bit of a warp in it, but we can get it as flat as possible with this one. So we'll do that on it, and then it should be ready for paint. Once it's ready for paint, we can do that bit, the rear bit, give the car a proper clean up, get it down for an MOT. What are we going to do with it? Well, I don't think it's worth a lot of money. People were telling me that the little green one they thought was worth between 1,000 and 1,500 quid on a 2003 with 130,000 miles. I imagine that makes a 2008 with 100,000 miles and a fresh MOT on it worth, well, it's got to be worth £700–800 or more, I'd have thought, for being 5 years younger, and was it 20 or 30,000 miles less? So maybe even 2,495. But I don't know. Maybe we find a good home for it, and even give it away possibly. I don't know. I guess it depends how well sales are going next month, doesn't it? As I said, going into February, my goal is to finish projects like that off, get a few of these cars out, get that little Cougar done. I'm not going to chase down stock at the moment because I'm feeling quite relaxed and quite chilled, just working my way through things. And I'm liking doing jobs like putting this sump back on the micro there and doing a bit of paint. It's been a while since I've had the time to get my hands dirty and crack on. We need to do some similar little jobs on this little Peugeot as well. So anyway, massive thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. If you're not subscribed, please consider doing so. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Remember, anything I've used in the video will be in my Amazon shop if you need to use any of the parts that I've used. And that special offer for the jump pack will also be down below.